Welcome to the Chronically Will podcast, where we have real conversations with community that need to be heard. On today's episode, we get to hear from Leah. I do not know much more about her other than she wanted to be here and grace us with her presence. So as she do tell us about her story and her journey, we also will be embarking on it with her. So Leah, could you please give our audience a summary of who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Leah. I live in Colorado, and I am actually a type 1 diabetes research assistant at the Barbara Davis Center. I work with Trialnet. I don't have type 1, but I do have
Got
family
you.
members with type 1. However, I do have a chronic condition called ankylosing spondylitis. So I'm in that autoimmune world.
Tonsillitis?
Yeah, it's hard. Ankylosing spondylitis.
And you said you have family members that live with type 1.
I do, yeah. Actually, my brother-in-law, and quite the story. I started working in the world of type 1 back in 2022.
Mhm.
And I was not aware that my brother-in-law had type 1. It wasn't until months down that my husband told me. And his story is he found out by chance. He started having the symptoms, increased urination, increased thirst, fatigued. And he was dating a type 1 diabetic at the time. And she was the one that told him, you need to get checked out. And she tested his blood and he was over 400. That is how he found out. And he said it was so hard to acclimate to his diagnosis. It didn't hit him until 3 months later that he was like, wow, okay, I have type 1. It's life changing. And one of the things that I found insane was he was not allowed to get a pump until being a diabetic for 1 year. So he struggled quite a bit. But finally, he was able to get a grasp on it. And he's actually a chef. He's worked at Michelin star restaurants and he's found a way to connect his diabetes with his work.
That's amazing that he's able to do that. And like many of us who were diagnosed, someone else noticed the symptoms. I know my dad basically diagnosed me when I told him my symptoms, and he was like, "You got diabetes." I said, and for me, probably like him, like I was thankful because I mean, if I didn't get the diagnosis, we know 103 years ago now was no option for us moving forward other than that slow, comatose, bedridden demise. He has an advocate like yourself now also. And you work with Trialnet as a research assistant. Trialnet is an amazing organization. And I don't know when I first came about Trialnet, maybe around 2020, somewhere around there. As someone who lives with type 1 diabetes, I'm big into research, into science, and knowing that there's an actual place where not only can we predict the future of T1D and people living with it, but today there's a way we can put a pause to newly diagnosed individuals living with type 1 diabetes. What brought you into this world?
Yeah, living with my chronic condition, I wanted to be able to help other people with similar situations. And I had worked in research all throughout my undergrad. And actually, a friend of mine who worked in the same lab as I did started working at Barbara Davis Center. And she's like, hey, we have an opening. And I applied. And surprisingly, I didn't get the job at first. And then the person who got the job before me ended up not wanting to do it. And they hired me. And I think it was the best decision. I love my job. And working with Trialnet is pretty amazing. Trying, testing family members. And we actually start at the age of 2. And we test first degree until the ages of 45, and then second and third until the ages of 20. If you're found to be at risk, if you have those autoantibodies, we then offer free monitoring just to see how those sugars change. And I don't know if people are aware, which is something that people in our clinic are not aware sometimes, is that type 1 develops in 3 stages. Stage one is having those autoantibodies, normal sugar levels. Stage two is when you start to see those sugars fluctuate. And then stage three is that clinical diagnosis. And like you said, we do have that treatment available, which is teplizumab, also known as Tzield, to delay the onset. And Trialnet actually had a project beforehand with teplizumab. And so they contributed greatly to that treatment. And one of our nurses on our team, Lexi, she spearheaded that at the Barbara Davis Center. And now she works in the early T1D clinic to administer that treatment.
I'm fairly familiar with Tzield or teplizumab. And I've even posted about it over the last 4 to 5 years because when I first heard about this, I was wowed in a sense like all of these years where people have just gone through DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, where people have gone undiagnosed and people haven't found out until after death that a person lived with type 1 diabetes. So to give you a brief history of my own, my grandma, she was diagnosed type 1 diabetes around 2002, a year before she passed, 2003. And that was during her treatment of brain cancer. And 5 years ago, I went through ancestry.com to find out more information about her family. It's limited because her mom was a foster child. She was found at a police station at 6 months old. And growing up, people always were like, yeah, she passed from, they said she had some kind of autoimmune disease that obstructed her bowels. She was frail then. And so going through ancestry.com and finding her death certificate, it told us that she had type 1 diabetes and her death was due to acidosis.
Wow. It's just crazy how people get misdiagnosed, especially adults, right? My grandma on my stepdad's side, she lived as a type 2 diabetic for 20 years. And it wasn't until recently that they figured out it was type 1. And I mean, she was really sick for years and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And so it's been quite the change now that she's been able to get on insulin. But I find it crazy that it's still so misunderstood in adults.
It is. And I don't know how we go about changing that other than as we do awareness, advocacy, getting more people who not only live with this, but people who don't actively involve. Like yourself, you don't live with type 1 diabetes, but as an advocate, like you're pushing for screening, pushing for family members. And I run one Instagram group of parents of children with T1D, and my research has shown me like that it's very hard to get people screened. And last year, I did a little research project. I asked people who were already diagnosed with type 1 diabetes what would stop them from getting their children screened. And a big percent shared that if you were diagnosed as a child, you do not want your child screened because you only know this life with type 1 diabetes. So for you, it wasn't a big change or traumatic change. Like we know it's psychological as well. But if you were diagnosed teen years, adult years, you want everyone screened.
Right. And I think a lot of it too comes from, like you said, the fear of having your child go through that. It's better to not know. And we see that a lot too in our clinic. And actually, we've seen a lot of it comes from mistrust in the system because it's type 1 is so misunderstood and people having problems with getting diagnosed. They fear that what we're doing at times, we might get it wrong. It's not what they want to hear too. Getting the news that your child is type 1, it already is significant. But we also see with parents getting the news that their child is at risk is also devastating for them.
Yeah, having to look for those signs and symptoms, and you're thinking everything is affecting it. Kid gets a little scrape or bruise. Is it going to trigger their onset? Because they say that a traumatic experience, or it could be physical or viral, can trigger the onset of diabetes if they have these markers already. So I understand that truly. I have 3 children. My older two, they've been screened since forever. They're 17 and 15 now. But my youngest, who's 11, he was first screened when he was in kindergarten at age 5. And I just received a notice in the mail last week about him getting screened again. Like he doesn't have any of the markers or autoantibodies, but they do recommend him getting screened again since it's been more than 5 years. So, I mean, we're doing that. He's getting screened. And I wish that I could get my siblings screened because we know our family, it's there. And I have a first cousin, same maternal side. She has type 1. She was diagnosed at 12. It's there. And if we can get them screened, we will. What's what's the plan? Like what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, Trialnet makes it very accessible. There's 3 ways of screening. The first one is, you can go into one of our sites and get screened in person, but we also make it very convenient for people who don't want to come in. So we can send kids out. One would be through a finger poke, so you do that at home, send it back to us. The other one is a venipuncture kit, and you just take that to a Quest or a LabCorp that's near you and then get screened. So we do have options for people to get screened to just make it more convenient for them so that they don't have to come into our sites.
I had one parent reach out to me last week about how do they get their kids screened without having to prick them themselves. And I was telling them, I even sent them like information to LabCorp. I was like, first, fill out the information via Trialnet. They'll align you with the lab or the LabCorp in your area. And they were like, they recall when I think their child's 14 now, and they have a sibling with type 1 and a parent. And they recall when they first got them screened when they were younger, like 7 or 8, and how traumatic that was. They were like, he does not like needles. He doesn't like blood. And I'm like, well, who does? Like, really?
Yeah,
Especially a child, like a 14-year-old.
great.
No, if I don't have to do it, I'm not doing it. That's it. And so I sent her that information and she said she's going to tell him about that. But I had told her, I said, well, just treat it like it's a routine physical. I said, treat it like that. And she was like, yeah, maybe I'll just tell him like it's a part of your physical. You're 14 now, you're a teen adolescent becoming a young adult. So you go through different transitions in your life. So this is a part of it. And I said, that's the way you do it. Like just make it happen.
And we make it easy as possible. And then just for people know, all of it is completely free. So you don't have to worry about paying for anything. And even the kits that go to LabCorp, they worry about shipping it back to us. So you just go in, get it done, and you don't worry about it.
Right. I do have a question, and it was something that an adult had shared with me. So, let's say an adult was diagnosed with diabetes at age 18, 19 while in college, and all of their paperwork just says diabetes, A1C 16 or whatever, and they never got a formal diagnosis of type 1 versus type 2, could even be LADA. Can they get screened through Trialnet without having that direct family history?
So they would need to have a family history of type 1, but let's say if they don't have that formal diagnosis, they still can screen through TrialNet, but if they do have a formal diagnosis, that unfortunately makes them ineligible.
I have one parent who child was diagnosed at 7 months.
Wow.
And yes, 7 months, young baby. He just turned a year in September. And when he was diagnosed, his 3 siblings were 7, 8, and 5 at the time. They all got screened. His sister, who's 5, came back with 3 autoantibodies, and she's been getting routine A1Cs done. So I think she's had like 2 over the last 6 months. And just in September, they were telling mom that you're going to have to start her on insulin because it's progressed that much. And because of her age, she wasn't able to go through the teplizumab Tzield. And who else do I have? I have a mom who was frightened. Like frightened because she has type 1 diabetes. She has a child who lives with another disability, who's 5, and a daughter who's 8. And I had a whole therapy session with her on screening them because she held the kids in her house for like 3 weeks. And she was like, I just keep looking at them, keep shaking my head, and I keep saying, I got to do this. I have to do this. And we had a session and she screened her babies and no autoantibodies. And she had a party to celebrate that. And that's because of Trialnet, that these parents are able to know, they're able to move forward with how they're going to treat it, and they're able to also continue celebrations.
Right.
But I did have a mom 2 days ago reach out to me. She has one daughter who's 6 who has type 1, and her son, who's 2, got screened when her daughter was diagnosed a year ago, and he had 4. He was formally diagnosed about 4 days ago.
Mm.
And but thanks to Trialnet, he's not in DKA. She was able to know the signs, and his regular pediatrician was like, "It's time," and she's okay. I was just like, what if it just came about like abruptly out of nowhere, like most of us were diagnosed how it comes about? How would she have been prepared? But now she's prepared. She knew the signs, and now she knows what to do. She knows the labor of it.
Yeah, and that's what's great about TrialNet is we catch it so early. Like as soon as those sugars start to fluctuate, we catch it through an oral glucose tolerance test. And also we teach families and educate families about the signs and what to expect and what to look for. And once if that happens, we see them right away. And I also wanted to bring up we care about our participants so much. Right now we have in our monitoring phase maybe 70 something participants, and I split that up with another coordinator, but I can tell you that I know every single name of the people that I see, and we care about them. We basically treat them as family. Like we love our families and we love to help out.
And I truly feel that with TrialNet. TrialNet is just one of less than a handful of organizations that I truly trust in and have faith in because I've seen the steps. I feel like I've been a part of the journey with TrialNet over the last 6, 7 years. How can we as a community support TrialNet? I know screening, but is there other ways we can support TrialNet?
It's spreading the word just within the community. I mean, TrialNet itself goes out to different events. Like, for example, the Breakthrough T1D walks. We are there and we are spreading the word and we screen people at those events. But still, not a lot of people know about TrialNet. So I think it's just that. Just tell the world about us because we want to help.
I know that your arms are always open.
Oh,
Like you said, like it's empathy. You embrace these families. You let them know I got you. You show up. Is there a way for, let's say, local organizations to get TrialNet involved in events that they would have? Like, say, like there's a local boys and girls club or library that's having things for children. Is there a way that they could reach out and get a coordinator to come through to do screening?
yeah. And you can always find us online. Just search us up with TrialNet and the number is there. Yeah, reach out to us. We will come out there. And if it's helpful, you can reach out to me personally and I'll connect you with the coordinator in your area. And my number is actually, I'm always happy to take your call and share more information.
Again, TrialNet is a needed resource for families, individuals that are living with type 1 diabetes, have a family history of type 1 diabetes, even those like if you have other autoimmune conditions such as yourself with ankylosing, hold on, ankylosing spondylitis. Am I
Close,
close?
close, very close. Ankylosing spondylitis. It's part of
Spondylitis.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Got you. Got you. Yeah. Now is that considered an autoimmune disease? I know it's inflammatory.
Yes, yes, it is considered an autoimmune disease. It's actually a type of arthritis. I got stuck with a hard one. um, I mean, you just manage it, but the arthritis mostly is in the spine. It actually fuses the vertebrae together. So I have to be on immunosuppressants for the rest of my life.
Was that diagnosed young?
No, so I actually had to fight for a diagnosis. I was, let's see, 24 and I started having back pains. I had been having back pains for a while, but it got so severe that I wasn't able to walk. And when I went to my primary care, they just did x rays and they couldn't find anything. And then they just kind of left it alone. And I had to go in and tell them something's wrong. I need to be seen now. And they finally referred me after 6 months to a specialist. And I still had to wait 4 more months to get seen. But my rheumatologist, amazing. Like as soon as I went in, he said, I know what you have. He
Mm.
touched a part in my back and he's like, does this hurt? And oh my goodness, the pain I felt he touched. I was like, yes, it hurts so much. And he's like, I know what it is. Let's get an MRI just to confirm. And he came back 2 weeks later and he was like, this is what it is, and started me on treatment right away.
I feel as though I need to go see your rheumatologist. Yeah, because I'm like, I know once he touched it, it was a relief also. Like he found it. Now what he gonna do to fix it
Yeah.
or help better the management and the care of having it? Because having a chronic health condition is a lot, and to not know what it is even greater. Just like
Yeah.
with
And sorry, it's just,
your
it validated me. I didn't feel crazy anymore because my primaries made me feel crazy. There was a point that we're about to call in a psychologist
Mhm.
because they thought this was all in my
Mental.
head. Yeah, this was all mental. It was in my head. I was making it up because I couldn't find anything on the images. And I actually started to believe it at some point too. I was like, what if I am making this up? But what if this is all for attention? I don't know. So having that rheumatologist finally give me a diagnosis, I was like, okay, this was not in my head. This is real. And yeah, I even think after leaving the office, I cried.
That's amazing. Doctors, physicians, NPRs, everyone, like, just know we do have faith in you. We do. We know some of you are highly empathetic and sympathetic to the things that we go through, and that you are trying to align yourself so that we can be at our best. We do know that. We do hold on to that dear hope that we may not want a certain diagnosis, but sometimes we need it because, as you said, they thought it may have been a mental or psychological thing, but little do they know it is, especially when you know you have this physical ailment and you've been pricked and prodded, been through every machine, then got every autoantibody run from RA, lupus, everything, MS, everything, and still haven't gotten or received any diagnosis. It starts playing mind games with you, like your mind's playing tricks on you. Like literally, what did I do yesterday? Triggered this. It had to be something like, about probably for about the last 4 or 5 years myself. I had been poked, prodded, I had been screened. Well, I was given a diagnosis of fibromyalgia in 2020, October 2020. My rheumatologist he suspected MS. So I got screened for MS and RA, seronegative, everything for RA. Came back, no RA, no MS. But in my charts, he had put that he suspected that it was a neurological disorder that I was enduring. He was like, because of I was having severe muscle spasms, um, all over my body, and my joints were rigidy. So November of this past year, so it's been what 10 and a half months. I went into a neurologist. This was my fourth neurologist. I had been screened for neuropathy, all types of things because of my joints and the spasms. And as soon as I walked into the office, it was three neurologists, neuroscience. And first thing they asked was, have you ever heard of SPS? And I said, SPS. I said, stiff person syndrome? And they're like, yeah, have you ever heard of that? And I said, Celine Dion. And they were like, yeah, Celine Dion is probably the most popular person with it. And I said, yeah. And they were like, we're going over all of your test results over the last 3 to 4 years. And it's been written in your chart a few times that you may have SPS. And I said, I never saw that. And so then the head neurologist, Dr. Blackwell, thank you. She goes, Will, she's like, I'm going to send you to get labs done through the Mayo Clinic for your GAD65 autoantibodies, which we know are highly prevalent in type 1 diabetes. And I told her, I said, I got my GAD autoantibodies done maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. I have the results somewhere. I have to go look for them. And she was like, well, when you find them, can you send them to me? And I found them while I was sitting in the parking lot after I left the visit. And it was like 5,000 plus worth of autoantibodies. And for stiff person syndrome, a typical diagnosis is like 250 plus. And she was like, and I called her and I told her, and she was like, send that to me ASAP. Sent it to her. Went to the lab later that day, get tested. Results came back. A week later, she calls me and she goes, well, she was like, it's stiff person syndrome. She said, your GAD autoantibodies are so high. She was like, that's why you're having all of these symptoms. She was like, people with type 1 diabetes, their GAD autoantibodies are below, or I think they're like below 200. And she was like, but stiff person syndrome, we start looking at them above 250. But if they're elevated in the thousands, it's definitely a diagnosis. And I said, all I told her was thank you because I have been told like yourself for so long that it was a mental thing.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's quite a experience for people who have chronic conditions, right? Go through these hoops and loops and yeah, being told it's all in your head and finally when you get that diagnosis, yeah, it's devastating, but then you're like, "Oh my god, finally I know what it is."
And that wraps us back around to Trialnet because we know parents, if you have one child living with type 1 diabetes, or if yourself or you have a family member, you may be looking at your child. And a great relief will be knowing the absolute truth instead of having to, keep giving them finger pricks every now and then. You know, the child hates that and you hate it also. But if you can just have this simple lab blood withdrawal. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's no more than a typical blood withdrawal from a lab. Your child's done it before growing up. If they can get this done, you will have immediate, direct knowledge of what to look for moving forward. Is my
Yeah,
child going to have it or if they're not?
right. And even to take into account the risk, right, for people who are family members of type 1, usually in the general population, risk is 1 in 300, but with family members, it's 1 in 20. So, you would want to get your children screened because the likelihood of them being at risk is very high compared to the general population. And so we get you screened, you see those positive results, and we will do our job to monitor you throughout this journey to help you get that diagnosis. And once the diagnosis is in, we're also taking care of you. And another benefit is screening if we have any other prevention trials available. So besides Tzield, we will offer that to you. So we have options, we have things readily available, resources for family and family members of type 1.
And anyone who wants to know more information, you can visit trialnet.org or rewind and listen to that phone number that Leah did share with us because, as she said, she's always available. And Leah, your empathy shares and it shows because not only do you live with a chronic health condition, but you have family members that do also. And I know that as a father, as a husband, as a sibling, as a son, um, I know that I want all of my family to be at their best. And a part of me wanting them to be at their best is wanting their communities to be at their best. And you are a part of this community. Like you don't live with type 1 diabetes, but you truly are a part of this community because you're initiating a process that for so long has been even daunting to some. But once they hear like there's an option, like we have to, if we're given options in life, Like we're able to research them, understand them, and then choose the path that we take. Not everyone will get screened, but here today, I'm letting you know that there's an option to be screened.
Right. Yeah, we're here. And what's good to know is we're more than just a kit or a lab. There's spaces of Trialnet. For example, myself. And yeah, we would love to have you and we would love to help out and know that we are there.
Your brother-in-law, uh, has he have children?
He does not, but
Does
I did test my husband and trying to get his other brother tested. And I love to know that when I do have children, TrialNet is there because I will be testing them as well.
right. And can you share like why you would get your children tested? Because I see so often where someone's like, well, my parents don't have it, my brother or sister don't have it. I don't know where type 1 comes from in my family.
Yeah, and part of that is my brother-in-law. He is the only one with type 1. It was quite the surprise, and I mean, nobody knew of anybody in the family. And so that's why I would test my kids because now there is a risk. You know, we know there's a family member with it, and I do want to avoid them being sick. I've seen people in DKA and it's awful. I mean,
It
they're
is.
incredibly sick and they get hospitalized and to even get them out of DKA, you really have to work and help the body to be able to regulate. And I don't want my children to go through that. I want my children to be caught at a point where I'm even able to give them Tzield and to delay the onset to even better prepare ourselves for a diagnosis. Even now, I know about type 1, but I would like to know and have those extra years to get not only my children prepared, but get myself and my husband prepared.
All about preparation. And as parents, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not only can we see a future for our children, they may not follow in those footsteps because, they have everything else in life that are teaching them other than us. But we know that just to prepare them for certain things is part of our job. We prepare them for, like, in case of illnesses do occur in schools. That's where they primarily occur in schools. We prepare them for that. We let them know, like hand sanitizer, tissues, all of those things. We go through different ways of teaching them how to keep clean and to avoid germs. So let's treat this like it's a germ. Like, come on. Type 1
Yeah.
diabetes, we want to, if we know it's out there, let's take a preventative step and measure. And also just to know like some of the symptoms, some of the signs for it. And TrialNet does offer that. I mean, we know that there's other people out there that are doing this, but TrialNet is the OG. Like that's what I always tell people. TrialNet is the OG of this game we call it type 1 diabetes preventative steps and measures. Like,
I mean, childhood's been going on for 20 plus years. We are the
yeah.
OGs and we screened over a quarter of a million people and we're going to keep going. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as a person living with type 1 diabetes, um, DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, is the one thing we all want to prevent. There's not one person living with type 1 diabetes or is the caregiver of someone who's been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes that want to see anyone going through DKA. It may just be an acronym for you, for people listening, but it's not. It's literally preparing for death. And let's do what we can to halt that, to change the trajectory and the future of other people living with type 1 diabetes by doing research with our organizations such as Trialnet, because research and science truly does matter.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, if we can put an analogy to it, it's like a hurricane. You know, a hurricane is coming. So you prepare for it. You have your documents ready, things that you need, food and everything. I'm ready to go. But then if somebody doesn't have that, hurricane hits, yes, you may be able to recover some things from your house, but you've lost so much. And rebuilding that is tough. So it's better to be prepared for that natural disaster, right? In somebody's life.
Right. Well, where I know that Trialnet is all around. Do often hear people from overseas like ask about Trialnet. Now, has the organization expanded to other countries?
So right now, primarily United States, but we do have some sites in Australia.
Sites in Australia, and that's great to know because I do have many friends in Australia, and I'm going to push the Trialnet button as much as I can to get everyone, as many people screened as possible. That's great to know. You don't live with type 1 diabetes, but you're someone in the community of type 1 diabetes, and you've seen it from the beginning to the end, and you know that someday, maybe not today, but
Yeah.
with things such as trialnet.org, there may be a true functional cure. And Trialnet and Tzield teplizumab has helped in
Yeah.
furthering research for that. And I mean, it's been used in furthering research, not just in what we see, like, I mean, primarily what we see is like, okay, take Tzield to delay the onset, but it's doing a lot more than just that. Ask everyone this throughout the podcast. On the day, Leah, you find out there has been a true functional cure for type 1 diabetes. And it's not only readily available for me, for your brother-in-law, for my cousin, but it's readily available for everyone around the world. And when I say around the world, I mean everywhere, even in countries where they don't have access to even modern technology and the insulin that we use here in the US. This cure is available for all of us. On that day, you find out it's been fully functionally cured. What do you do?
Might not have a job, but I'd be happy to not have a job. I'd be so happy if, yeah, I always say it, right? If I don't have a job, that means type 1 diabetes is cured. And I'd be overjoyed. I mean, I think I'm getting teary to think about because having a family member or two family members be cured, I know it's been such a big part of their lives and they've been able to get accustomed to it. But man, how life would be without having to depend on insulin and how much more they could do. I mean, it hasn't stopped them from doing anything, but I just be able to do it without being worried.
I feel you on that 100% because although we make it look good, it's not always our best. It
Yeah.
truly isn't. And on that day, a true functional cure is here. We all celebrate. We celebrate because of research and studies such as TrialNet, because we know that you will aid in this. And
Mm.
another way in aiding is to get screened. That's the goal.
That is the goal. And I am so hopeful. I mean, Tzield put us so in advance in type 1 research. And I'm so hopeful we are going to have other treatments that will get us closer to a diagnosis. I mean, research itself, right, has come so far. I share a fun fact always. If you were to be diagnosed in the 1950s, to get your insulin, it would be a reusable syringe you would sharpen on a whetstone. And then to get your glucose levels, you would have to mix, and this is precisely 10 drops of water, 5 drops of urine, mix that up, go to a wall at your doctor's office and try to match that color. Look at where we are now. I mean, 1950 wasn't too long ago, right? And we have come so far.
We have, just think of people like Dr. Banning. He didn't live with type 1 diabetes. He just was a researcher, a scientist, a doctor that saw it just like you see it, just like your coworkers, everyone at TrialNet, they see this and they want to do whatever they can to prevent it. And it's amazing because as someone who lives with it, to be able to know that I have an ally, not only an ally in you, but an ally in this whole conglomerate of community. Like, I know that I could reach out. So I love building partnerships. I love building communities because within our community, we should have people working different branches. We have therapists. We have endocrinologists. We have researchers. We have scientists. We all work together to continue this healing journey living with type 1 diabetes. And as yourself living with, I'm going to get it right this time, ankylosing spondylitis,
Yes.
you live with a chronic health condition that is inflammatory, arthritic. And I know that every day you're not at your best, but to know that there's research out there that's going to help aid in you and you being your best moving forward. And you are also aiding in the best of myself moving forward. I have to be an ally to you as well because you need me and I need you. We need each other
That's
because
right.
chronic health condition, we wouldn't wish it on our worst enemy. And I have no enemies. Before we go, is there anything else you want to share with our community?
Yes, a couple things. So I just remembered we do have a site in Canada. So Canada, Australia, you guys are in the game. Get checked out for sure. And then the other thing is, like you said, being allies to help people in the type 1 community. We need a community that goes beyond type 1. We need people who can be allies and maybe even people who don't have family members with type 1. It's just being there, even like I said, Breakthrough T1D walk and other events where the word is spread. That's how you can help the community, is just be empathetic and be part of the community to help. You don't need to be a family member. You don't need to have any connection with type 1, but being a part of the community helps greatly.
It helps greatly. On that note, my friend Leah, who I met less than an hour ago, but now we're family. Thank you for joining me on the Chronically Well podcast, where we have real conversations with community that need to be heard. Because Leah, you are someone that truly needs and deserves to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.